Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke, so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to this wonderful Friday evening. I should warn everyone ahead of time, I ate dinner before this, and sometimes just eating food will upset my stomach. So we'll have to see how it goes. I'm not feeling 100 right now. So that's why I'm not keen on eating a lot of the times, because I never know how it will land in my stomach, unfortunately. So we'll have to see how it goes, like I said. But welcome. Let's see who's already in the sandbox. Soul Life, Mudbutts, Morbius Dragons, Looney Tunes 9000, Dino Rancher, and I believe I saw, yep, there's a Hackner, Tyler Hackner. My dogs are goth, MIDI doctors. Wow, so many people out. I hope I didn't miss anybody's name, because I that's the problem. I start reading out people's names and then I get terribly worried I'm going to miss something. And you know, I've been on the receiving end of being missed. So I try my best to make sure that I get everyone. But I hope people were able to come out to my Wednesday show. Last Wednesday, I had the spectacular Ravana on my show. We had a great conversation. You can go and check out that live stream. And yeah, I'm back from vacation. I guess, do I really call it a vacation when I didn't really do anything vacation-y other than not do live streams? I had a lot of other stuff that I needed to get done, and I got a lot of stuff done. About half of the stuff that I wanted to get done. Anyway, I'm just rambling, and I have a lot of news that I want to cover. Looney Tunes 9000. Are you sick, Sandy? I'm kind of feeling like my supper that I ate before this isn't sitting well in my stomach, which is not that uncommon, unfortunately. Which is why I try not to eat before I live stream. But I made the mistake of doing that today. And so we'll have to see how it goes. Hello, Kelly Bog. That's very mindful of you, Sandy. I'm not entirely sure what that's in reference to, though, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Okay, yeah, lots of people already here, and we need to actually get to the news because there's so much news to happen. Yeah, I'm just kind of scatterbrained right now, as per my normal. Anyway, let's start with Gaza. There's been some breaking news with the ICJ ruling there, which I was relieved by. I was relieved by that ruling because I was worried so much that they would rule in such a way to rule out genocide completely, and then it's kind of like, well, then what is the bar people would have to meet in order for it to be called genocide? So we'll go over that in a bit, but there's a couple other things that I wanted to touch on about Gaza before we get there. I'm going to warn people. The first video I show is just one of Sean King talking about some of his experiences. But then what I talk about afterwards, it has the potential of being extremely upsetting. So we'll have to, I'll warn you guys when we get to it. So there we go. So we got this post here. This is truly beautiful piece from Sean King about how we all now know and care about many Palestinians by name, something that propaganda can't buy or counter.
I call them kids because many of the young journalists in Gaza are literally, my oldest two daughters are 22 and 24. Most of these young journalists are children. They're 20, 21, 22, who are forcing the world to see them, to understand them. And so now I have people who are so obsessed with Palestinians in Gaza that they follow, that if those Palestinians don't post every 4 or 5 hours, they begin to panic and wonder, is my new favorite person that I pray for, that I cry for, that I wonder about, is she okay?
This is one of the beneficial, amazing things of social media, is that we are able to see the human side of what's happening over there. We're able to see it from the perspective of the people living it. And when they share their stories, when they talk about their experiences, their lives, their reality, it's hard not to feel for them, to start personalizing it in a way that we're not used to doing when it comes to conflicts like this. We're so used to hearing about it, something that happens over there, but we don't see the footage. We don't see the firsthand footage of the people actually living there. And so to have it, especially on platforms like TikTok, where it gets to a much wider, younger audience, and we're seeing the brutality of it firsthand from the people living it, it really takes away that distance that's been there for so many other conflicts where it's out of sight, out of mind for people here. Because we're seeing it and we're feeling it and we're personalizing it. And I'm very grateful that we have the social media in order for this to happen.
I saw a young woman named Bisan that I have grown to just love and admire. She said something that devastated me. She said for 60 days, she had kept her 3 cats alive. And she had left her cats in her home only on day 60 for her home to be bombed and her cats to be killed. I've never cried over cats. I don't even like cats. But how hard must it have been to keep 3 cats alive for 60 days in the apocalypse?
Yeah, that hit me hard. Because I understand, the love for your cats and stuff of that sort, and the lengths you would have to go to in order to see to it that they survive that long when there's not even enough food and water for people. It is to have that one last remaining comfort, the creatures you love, be taken away. It's pretty hard.
And yet she had done it. And I saw nearly 1 million people that interacted with her post and grieved with her and said, Bisan, I'm sorry about your cats. And I did a simple survey and asked my followers, how many of you know a Palestinian by name? And almost 95% of my followers now know someone in Gaza by name. That is a earth-shattering shift from where we were on October the 6th, that now it's not a news story, it's not a link to click on, but there is a person that you know and love and care about. And that does not make someone Palestinian, but it makes it real in a way that is real for almost everyone here, but now it's real for people all over the world. And That that is something that no propaganda machine ever could create.
So this video got me thinking of another thing I saw on Twitter, and I wasn't sure if I was going to share it just because of how devastating it can be for people who have very sensitive hearts. Because we see it all, but it's just there's no escaping it. There's no every level, every comfort is being destroyed over there. Every last reprise is being destroyed. And so I found this video, which will then lead into the really, really horrible thing. So I'm just going to warn people if you're very feeling sensitive right now, you might want to tune out for the next 5 minutes or so. If you have a sensitive heart, especially towards cats. For your own well-being, I would suggest you just, look away, don't listen for the next about 5 minutes. So I'll read this video. It's only a minute long because it's spoken in Arabic, but this is the tweet says, in the heart of Gaza City, the global cat cafe trend makes its mark. The Meow Cat Cafe saw dozens of locals eager to experience this unique haven amid Gaza's constant challenges. The cafe stands as a symbol of temporary relief from the realities of the blockaded region. This was from August of last year, August 2023. And even then, they're still talking about the relief of the realities of the situation that they're in. Because, again, this didn't start. The terror the people in Gaza are facing didn't start on the 7th. It's been going on for decades. And this was one person's way of trying to escape that horror that they were living in all the time. So I'll read the video. Gaza's first cat cafe respite amid the blockade. You know what I mean. Cats for me are a refuge. This is the person who started the cafe. So let's go back. So cats for me are a refuge that relieves me of psychological stress, so I thought of creating a project that combines serving people with something to cheer them up. That's where the idea of the cat cafe came from. It combines the... Whoa, this is going a bit fast. So it combines the concepts of a normal coffee shop with cute twist of having your cup of coffee with playing with a cat that will make you smile and forget about the pressures of life beyond the walls of this shop. It's a wonderful idea, especially for cat lovers, says this person who is visiting the cafe. The quality of cats here is beautiful and sweet. Oh, look at that little guy. I think some of you might be cluing in now to where this is leading. So, like I said, if you're sensitive to this, you might not want to listen for the next little while. Just an adorable little creature there. So it's a wonderful idea. Despite its strangeness to our society, and when I heard about it, I felt happy. Someone who loves cats will come visit. and won't care about the cost of entry. And it really didn't like me messing it up. So again, this is from August of 2023. First cat cafe in Gaza. This is where reality really sinks in. From Owen Jones. 7 weeks before a woman who opened up the Meow Cat Cafe in Gaza City. Cats are a natural antidepressant, she said. When the war began, she fled, unable to take the cats, and entrusted them to God. Now the cats are eating decomposing bodies in Gaza streets. Yeah. There's something just so, to me, heart-wrenching at cats who have a sanctuary, who have felt loved, who have had a home. And suddenly all of that is taken away from them, and they're just cats. They don't know. Looking for the only food source they can find. These once sweet little innocent cats. But that's the reality of what's happening over there. It is, like I said, it is just devastating on so many levels, everything. That just the past summer, somebody started this to bring joy to people's lives, and now it's the most horrific outcome possible. Just get away from that screen for a second. But it's important to remember that it's not, people are dying over there. People are being moved from their homes, but it's also their culture, their way of life, their jobs, their communities. Everything is being erased. And if that's not genocide, then what is? So, fortunately, the ICJ has ruled, and from Owen Jones again, he breaks it down quite nicely. So I'm just going to go over his tweet thread on this. The ICJ has just ruled that the evidence is sufficient to conclude that at least some of South Africa's claims of genocide against Israel are plausible. There's been a lot of talk about language and why they haven't called for a ceasefire and stuff. We'll get a bit more into that. So they can't adjudicate at this stage on whether it is genocide. So this is just saying, yeah, this looks like genocide, but that's not what we're ruling on right now. So they have concluded there's a plausible risk of genocide. This is devastating, absolutely devastating. This means Western governments, politicians, and journalists have been cheering on what the highest court on earth plausibly believes could be a genocide. The court has ruled there is a real and immediate risk of irreparable harm to the Palestinian people of Gaza. I think it's a little bit more than immediate risk, but they have to use certain language. It's already too late for a lot of people for the irreparable harm there. South Africa is now the leader of the free world. Western moral authority has been buried along with thousands of Palestinians under the rubble of Gaza. And that's a very, poignant point to add, is that, it used to be America that was leading the world in culture, the freedom of Americans, the rights of Americans. And of course, for a lot of us, we now know that that dream they were selling everyone was false. But, they were driving the world to be a better place in some fashion. But how can they claim that now? while they've been cheering on this genocide, while they've been, paying for this genocide. Like they're helping, they're putting money towards this. But we have a country, South Africa, that is making the stand and actually saying this is wrong, it needs to stop, and we're calling it out. That's a leader that I want to follow. The ICJ has ordered Israel to punish those who incited genocide. That literally means Israel would have to arrest most of the Israeli government, including the president and prime minister, many of its politicians, generals, soldiers, and journalists. The ICJ is ordering Israel to preserve evidence and prevent its destruction. I don't think they're going to do a very good job of preserving that evidence, but luckily TikTok still exists, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people were duplicating the videos they saw on there of the IOF, and they're dancing around about the genocide. That is to prevent evidence relevant to whether Israel is committing genocide. What's so unbelievably devastating is that virtually all the judges voted for all of this. It wasn't even close. That means the case is absolutely overwhelming. So it's just like, imagine there's a murder case and the jury goes out and they all come back and they're like, yeah, after just a few minutes of deliberation, we're like, yeah, guilty, guilty. There's like, you can't escape the reality then. Like, they're all in agreement except for these two, which we'll talk about. The only two judges who voted against the judgment was Uganda's judge and Israel's HOC judge. Not shocking, Israel's. Uganda's judge voted against providing humanitarian aid. Is she okay? Oh, I see. And he has this quote tweeted, considering Uganda was found guilty of illegally occupying and causing war in the Congolese territory by the ICJ in order to pay $325 million in reparations, I'm not surprised she's voting against everything. Get her out of there. Yeah, like that's part of my problem with a lot of courts, judges, juries, and stuff is they're still free to rule on biases. Because if you looked at the facts presented in this case and you're looking at it objectively, there's no way you can say they're not guilty. So this is her bringing her own personal biases in on this, which is not right for judges. If a judge can't separate, their own experiences, their own biases from judgments, then they shouldn't be a judge. And we see this all too often. Like, you got the Supreme Court of the United States right now, where that is a problem, where they're not going to make judgments based on the facts presented, but they're going to make judgments based on the results they want. There is a lot of focus on the ICJ ruling not using the word ceasefire. They ordered Israel's military not to commit any of the following acts: killing Palestinians or causing serious bodily harm or mental harm. That is not possible without a ceasefire. And yeah, there's other things about, I think it's, so as this Yale professor explains, extensive order, provisional measures, all earnings, favorable votes, at least 15 and 17 of the judges, pretty much everything South Africa could have hoped for. Some commenters are noting the court didn't order a ceasefire, but it got as close to doing so as was ever reasonable to expect it would. So it's basically, they can't really rule it a ceasefire because it's not a war per se, and Hamas isn't part of the UN. Like, there's a lot of technical terms for it, but basically they're saying all the killing, all the bodily harm, all the mental harm needs to stop. And you can't do that without a ceasefire, although there's some very disingenuous people saying, oh, well, since they didn't order a ceasefire, therefore Israel's not guilty of a genocide. And that's simply not the case. Again, this wasn't about ruling if it is a genocide, just that it is plausible. And with that, so this is from, a week or so ago. After days of confusion, Trudeau government says it will abide by ICJ on genocide case against Israel. Prime Minister, Foreign Affairs Minister issues a statement that left many observers baffled. Canada will abide by all rulings arise from South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, officials at the Global Fair Canada have told CBC News. The clarification issued Monday comes days after confusion following verbal and written statements issued Friday by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly in response to South Africa's claim that Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza in its war against Hamas. Trudeau's and Joly's statements were widely misreported in mainstream media and on social media as dismissing South Africa's case and taking the side of Israel. In fact, their statements carefully avoided either rejecting or endorsing South Africa's case against Israel. I watched the footage. I showed it on here. And it was Justin Trudeau basically saying, I believe in the institution of the ICJ. I don't believe that this is a valid case. So he was dismissing it. And so it didn't sound neutral. It sounded like Canada had taken a clear position. And again, it wasn't just that. It wasn't just us. That was the pro-Israel groups. Yeah. So let's just see if a long article. So ruling could put pressure on Israel's allies. The court's final ruling on question of genocide is not expected for at least a year. So that's the final if it is a genocide. South Africa has also asked the court to consider provisional measures that would act as an injunction to prevent genocide from occurring. And so that's basically what just happened. Such an injunction could order Israel to cease military operations or alter its approach in some way, which is what happened. Since the ICJ has no mechanism to enforce its ruling, Israel might choose not to comply. So it's yet to be determined what this will actually do. Yeah, so let's see. Strongest parts of Canada's unwavering support of international law and the ICJ does not mean we accept the premise of the case brought by South Africa. We will follow proceedings at South Africa. That's what Justin Trudeau had said. That he doesn't believe in the premise of the case, but he believes in the ICJ. And from Ryan Grimm, we have this. Oh, no, it's been deleted. So then that might not have been a thing. He might have been corrected. So I'm not going to show that tweet. No need to show that tweet then. So this is going to put a lot of pressure on the countries who have been supporting Israel in their actions, because if this continues forward, if we go back to here, so this means Western governments, politicians, and journalists have been cheering on. Okay, yeah. So the ICJ has ordered Israel to punish those who incited genocide. If this goes further and it is proven to be genocide, I don't think it's going to be restricted to just Israeli officials and Israeli people. So it's putting other countries in quite the bind. If they keep on supporting Israel and then later on it is ruled to be a genocide, then that means that they were accomplices in it and could potentially mean that the prime minister selling them weapons and stuff could mean that they could go to trial, which is something I would hope would happen. It'd be nice to actually see justice. Like, nothing will ever repair the damage of what has happened, but it'd be nice to just see some level of accountability. Like, I'm all for arresting all the Western leaders on this one for supporting it and other war crimes. But the reality is, this country, Canada, has never even really been held accountable to the genocides it committed here. So, like, the problem is that we don't really have a way of enforcing it. There's certain rulings and stuff, but when you have countries that are so powerful, like the United States, they can simply ignore it, and what can we do about it, really? So time will tell how this will happen. Hopefully it won't take too long, because for a lot of people in Gaza, they don't have any more time. They're on the cusp of really, really horrendous outcomes, and it's important that aid is allowed in, food, water, medical supplies, and that people are allowed out. I did want to finish off my talk about Gaza with this. It went around earlier, and it was just so fun. I wanted to share it with everyone here, because it's one of those moments where this poor, I don't want to say poor woman, this person here, I don't know how old she is, but she made such a gaffe. This is going to be with her for the rest of her life. Good. Because this is just brilliant.
And I would like to use the rest of my time to say how appalled I am that people are bringing up the Holocaust. Do not use other genocides to describe this one. I have been... Oh... And I would like to use the rest of my time to say how appalled I am. And I would like to use the rest of my time to say how appalled I am.
I'm trying to pause it at the right moment here.
The Holocaust. Do not use other genocides to describe this one.
This one.
I have been...
Moment of realization. That piece of paper there represents her foot. Yeah. So you can basically tell that she knows. She's being disingenuous with her arguments. She knows what's happening is a genocide. And it's nice to see them get caught, you know, with their foot so thoroughly lodged in their throat with this. Oh. Well, let's check the Sandbox. Got a lot of people coming out today. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Looney Tunes 9000. Who doesn't like cats? Cats are adorable. Yeah. Soul Life Earth will not forget. Yeah. Dino Rancher. I haven't heard from my friend in Gaza for over a few months. I fear the worst. Sorry to hear that, Dino Rancher. I hope they're okay. Infinite content. You hear that Trump had to pay E. Jane Carroll an additional 83 million? I love it when they get their comeuppance. It's some accountability. So Life, their only war crime was wanting to be loved. Probably talking about the cats. Mike Frame, question, can you give us your perspective on Sean King and what to make of the accusations against him? I don't really know Sean King. I was just responding to a video. I don't know what the accusations are, so it's what he said in that video was poignant. I don't know him. I know the name. I think I've heard him say other things before, but I don't know anything else about what's going on. So I can't really give a perspective on that. Sorry. Oh, did we get some Left Reckoning Raiders? That would be nice. Hello! Welcome to Left of the Box. Da, 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 da. Just seeing. Dino Rancher, I pray for accountability, but recognize that the U.S. has never been charged and passed laws to prevent the ICC and ICJ to extradite or charge officials. Yeah, we shouldn't have, countries with so much power they can just ignore, the world. When they're guilty of crimes. It's kind of like they're the police state of the world. They're allowed to commit crimes with impunity while, charging everyone else and lashing out and overreacting and, murdering other countries and stuff. But the instant that they get called out for the crimes that they're doing, they close ranks and say, nope, not us. Okay. Like I said, there's lots of stuff to go over today. So, yeah, so I don't think Justin Trudeau is really going to be happy with the ICJ ruling. Hopefully it was predictable a little bit, but it's not the only ruling he's going to be upset with. Let's see, what tab is it on? Is it on this tab? Or is it on this tab? Or is it on this tab? Yes, this tab. Okay. I've tried to like separate them into different web things so that I can follow them easier and stuff. So there was a trucker convoy and in Ottawa, the Freedom Convoy, a little while ago, a couple years ago, feels like a lifetime ago, where basically a bunch of right-wingers occupied Ottawa. And there was a whole systematic failures. The city failed, the province failed. And then when Justin Trudeau stepped in to put an end to it, he overstepped his bounds. So it can be confusing for a lot of people as to what happened. Luckily, there's this video here from Rachel Gilmore, and she breaks it down quite nicely. So we'll listen to this. So first the tweet, a federal court just ruled Trudeau's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act during the Freedom Convoy violated Charter's rights. So the Emergencies Act allowed Justin to freeze accounts of the people donating large amounts of money, all this sort of stuff, have a really heavy hand and all that. But anyone seeing this as a victory for the convoy is really, really wrong. Here's why.
So-called Freedom Convoy. A federal judge just ruled that Trudeau's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act during the so-called Freedom Convoy was unreasonable and violated some charter rights. Though, interestingly, not the ones you might expect. Here's what you need to know about all this. The Emergencies Act is a really heavy hammer to use, so it makes sense that a lot of people would be interested in having Canada's courts scrutinize it closely to make sure no dangerous precedents are being set. Because the Emergencies Act gave cops a ton of extra power and allowed the government to freeze the bank accounts of those connected to the occupation. A mandatory inquiry found last year that the government did meet the threshold to invoke the Emergencies Act. But
so this is where some of the confusion gets in. It's basically the court was ruling, yeah, sure, he was allowed to do that, but he really shouldn't have. because it wasn't a national emergency.
But even then, they said it was close. And now a federal court has found the opposite and ruled the emergency proclamation was, quote, not justified. And that in using this overly broad tool, the government violated the charter right to free expression and to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. But interestingly, the judge found there was no violation of freedom to peaceful assembly because the judge said the convoy was basically an occupation that interfered with the lives of local residents, workers, and businesses. In the wake of this decision, I reached out to lawyer Paul Champ. He represented downtown residents and businesses during that previous Emergencies Act inquiry. And he told me he thinks the invocation of the act was a blunt tool that was unnecessary. As, quote, a coordinated response from the different levels of government could have addressed the excesses of the Freedom Convoy. He broke down the ruling for me like this, quote, the federal court basically ruled that the government's invocation of the Emergencies Act was unreasonable because it was overly broad and there was insufficient evidence that other laws or levels of government could not address the chaotic protests. Even as this judge
The problem is those other levels of government weren't addressing what was happening in Ottawa.
found the government's handling of the occupation was unreasonable, he did agree that a lot of the stuff the convoy did was pretty fucked up. Like, the judge found the convoy, quote, went beyond legitimate protest and reflected an unacceptable breakdown of public order. So while a lot of different groups might be presenting this as a win or a loss for a certain political team, the actual winner here is democracy. Because the government is being held to account, and so are Canadians who think they have a right to totally disrupt other people's lives. And they did. Trust me. I lived through it. Anyways, the federal government is appealing this decision, so we'll see what happens next. But in the meantime, what do you think of all this?
Yeah, so this isn't over because they're going to appeal it. But this is not looking good for Justin Trudeau, especially not with everything else that's going on with him right now. This is a very bad look for him. And even at the time of the Emergencies Act, a lot of people, left and right, were saying that it went a bit far. But we were running into the problem where the people who should have been doing something beforehand weren't. I believe, is it on this one? This person here tweeted out, so the Public Order Emergency Commission, Honorable Paul Rolu, whatever, I'm horrible with names, as required by law, found the government acted appropriately when invoked the Emergencies Act. So that was the first court case. The second one, the federal one, Federal Court Justice Richard Mosley found some charter rights were infringed before anyone or any organization takes a mission accomplished lap. It might be prudent to await the rulings of the federal courts of appeal and possibly the Supreme Court of Canada. So this is far from over. But somebody was replying to him saying, the judge is right that the other laws were sufficient to stop the convoy without needing the Emergencies Act. So yeah, if the police had done their job, if the provincial government had done their job, then there would have been nothing for Justin Trudeau to do. So he failed to acknowledge that the emergency wasn't just the convoy, but the provincial failure to enforce those other laws. Ford and Solely not doing their job was the emergency. So Solely being the police chief at the time. And we all saw videos of cops being sympathetic towards the convoy, not ticketing them, all sorts of things. Like, just a reminder of some of the things that people were going through. Like, this is the protest. This isn't, they're having a party. Where is, the whole, oh, it's anti-vax? No, it's not. And Paul Champ, who was mentioned in that video, also had this video out. I hope this isn't too loud. Let's mute that a bit. And this was from his balcony and what he was living through at the time. That was happening day and night. And one of the gross things is how many people brought their kids to this, who are going to most likely suffer permanent hearing damage from this because the decibels the were all rated and stuff. So a lot of the time, this was loud enough to cause damage to the ears. And like they were terrorizing the people of Ottawa. This wasn't like it wasn't a national emergency. So the Emergencies Act in that aspect shouldn't have been called because that's more for a national emergency. But to the people in Ottawa, they were being held hostage. They were under attack. And again, this is what they were doing. They weren't protesting, they were just throwing a big party. So the original Ottawa convoy was never about ending COVID-19 restrictions, which are now largely lifted, but rather about an opportunity for disaffected Canadians, again, primarily white, Christian, and male, to build and express community with others. I argue this based on the underlying feelings of shame arising from their inability to achieve their expected status in society. And this is from the Conversation article here. I'll just put that on screen. I will try to remember to link it below, but yeah, they had portable hot tubs. They were having barbecues. They were having like dance parties. And also, Ottawa homeless shelter staff harassed by convoy protesters demanding food. An Ottawa homeless shelter says protesters from the Freedom Convoy harassed staff and volunteers Saturday demanding food from their soup kitchen. And one shelter client was allegedly assaulted. The convoy billed as the protest against COVID-19 mandates brought thousands of people to downtown Ottawa while the bulk of the crowd remained on Parliament Hill and was largely peaceful. The Shepherds of Good Hope said that on social media that there was an incident at a shelter. Earlier today, our staff and volunteers experienced harassment from the convoy protesters seeking meals from our soup kitchen. The individuals were given meals to defuse the conflict. Management was then informed of the issues. No further meals were given to protesters. Our soup kitchen is committed to providing meals to people experiencing and at risk of homelessness in Ottawa. This weekend's events have caused significant strain to our operations at an already difficult time. Staff and volunteers were verbally harassed, and yeah, it was just completely outrageous what they were doing. And luckily that shelter was given a lot of donations after that to help support them, because they were there to the people who were on the streets not by choice, who need the help not by choice. Basically, these convoy people come in by choice, occupy the city, and then steal food from homeless people is basically what was happening. Like they were stealing the food meant for people who are unhoused, which is just so low, so low. But like, that's the thing. It had to end. And if the city and province had done their jobs, then Justin Trudeau wouldn't have had to do anything. But even then, what he did do was wrong. Even at the time, we were saying that it was too much. There was other things he could have done to help diffuse the situation. Like maybe even just get Doug Ford back from his cottage. Like Doug Ford went on vacation during this. People don't remember, but you can pretty much imagine whenever there was a major crisis going on, Doug Ford was at his cottage. So here's just an article on it. The Federal Use of Emergencies Act was unreasonable, judge rules. Ottawa judge has ruled it was unreasonable for the Liberal government to use the Emergencies Act to quell Freedom Convoy protests in the National Capital key border points 2 years ago. So some people are pointing out like other places that had the convoy people at certain borders and stuff, they were able to shut it down by counter protests and stuff, but it shouldn't be on the people to have to confront them. Like that, so much can go wrong in those situations. And so to say, you know, if there was enough counter protesters, they could have, no. It shouldn't be on the average person. Like it would be good to have counter protests if you can do it, but to really rely on them to send all these people back home. So the Public Order Emergency Commission, which carries out a mandatory review after invocation of the Emergencies Act, found the government met very high legal standard for using the law. Mosley heard arguments in the court over the 3 days last April. So this was the first one. I have concluded that in his rules, Mosley heard arguments in a court over the last 3 days in April. In his rulings, Mosley said he revisited the events and the benefits of hindsight with more extensive record and the fact that the law and the government, and when it proclaimed the public order emergency, I have concluded that the decision to issue the proclamation does not bear the hallmarks of reasonableness, justification, transparency, and intelligibility, and was not justified in relation to the relevant factual and legal constraints that were required to be taken into consideration, Mosley wrote. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland said the government respectfully disagrees with the decision and will appeal it. So, far from over. I don't think people really understand like how severe that situation was. I have a friend that lives in that area, and even though she wasn't like right in the downtown area, even she was being kept up at night from the horns and stuff. The threat that it was, people basically going to Ottawa to try to overthrow democracy was what was happening. And I don't think people really understand the gravity of what was allowed to happen, how it happened. Because we had people from the United States, from Canada, funding this, sending money to these right-wingers. And the people who went, they used the guise of the COVID-19 restrictions, but it wasn't the case because over 80% of the truckers, the working people, were vaccinated. They didn't have issues with it. It was the business owners. It was the people who could afford to take 3 weeks off of work to go to Ottawa, to travel to Ottawa. It was the people who have money and the means to do that went there. We're not talking about the average person. And, you might wonder, like, where does all of this come from? We have influences. It is... I don't see enough pushback against the rhetoric that we've been seeing on the right. The lies, the conspiracy theories. I don't see enough of the Democrats, liberals, conservative, people on the left that have platforms pushing back in any meaningful way, which just allows so much misinformation to go around because, I've talked to some people outside of my political bubble, and they don't know why the Freedom Convoy happened. They think they know why, but they don't know why, because they think it was exactly, it's about COVID-19 restrictions and these people who needed to work and couldn't work. And they just see that surface level excuse that it was done by, but they don't know the behind the scenes. They don't know the funding. They don't know all the people involved. And it's so hard. Like, how do you reach those people? Because they're not even people I hang around with. So it's hard for me to convince them because somebody like that won't come across my channel. If they come across my channel, they're not about to watch it because most people are not politically engaged. And in order to really know what's happening in a lot of these situations, you have to be politically engaged, which it's part of the struggle of covering political content is how do you reach the non-voter, the people who are apathetic to what's happening? Because things could change, especially here in Canada. It's not that difficult to have positive progressive change, but we needed enough people plugged in, aware of what's happening and willing to do something about it in order for that change to happen. But the right does such a brilliant job of convincing people of the wrong things, convincing them that the reason why they're suffering are for all these other things, and we'll blame it on immigrants, we'll blame it on poor people, people with disabilities, the housing, the liberals, we'll blame it on all of them. And so then they're never actually given the means to solve the problem. All the right does is accuse and lie, but never once does it give its base a solution. But the base just, they don't clue in. They just think if they can get rid of all these other things now, then they'll be able to have their right-wing utopia up here, whatever they think it's going to be. Let's check the sandbox. It's a little bit dry in here. Bad lefty, Israel knows we will not forgive, we will not forget. Yeah. Let's see. My dogs are goth. Environmental protesters get dragged and beaten. Yeah, the police were pretty much on board with the Freedom Convoy. There's clips. I remember I was working at like Rebel HQ when a lot of this was still relevant and had videos about it. And so I had copied and saved a lot of videos where you see police officers giving them a pass, talking to people going to the convoy, expressing their sympathies for why they're going up. And it's like, of course they are, because all the people at the convoy, you know, they're going to the community barbecue the following weekend. They all know each other. But when it comes to more left-wing issues and protests and stuff, the police have no problems being brutal towards the protesters. Yeah, I have that in some of my videos. I've covered that. I'm thinking back to the time of this, and it's like I can't remember if it's in one of my videos or one of my Rebel HQ videos. But I have always I put in the description box a link to my playlist of Rebel HQ videos for as long as it's up there. I have no control over how long my videos stay on Rebel HQ. Dino Rancher, as someone on the autism spectrum, that would have killed me. Yeah, me too. If there's like a little whiny whistle from like the water heater or a neighbor or like a breeze coming in a window, I cannot focus until I've seeked out the source and destroyed it. I can't imagine, like, just the constant blaring of horns would literally drive me crazy. I would not have been able to stay in Ottawa for that. Like, not at all. That would set me off in so many ways. And then some people also point out, you know, you might have vets there who have been through war times and have PTSD, and the sounds of this might be setting them off. Like, there were people prevented from going to work. There were people being harassed. You know, people just losing their minds, unable to sleep. Like, this city was under siege, and the city and the province did nothing. They did nothing. So then Justin Trudeau steps up and uses the Emergency Act and kind of used a sledgehammer on a nail. My dogs are goth, and then they have the nerve to say, what, you can't handle a little honking? Yeah, they're going to. That's the thing. I don't even know if they'll connect the dots when they start losing their hearing way too early. You know, far earlier than they would have if they're going to connect the dots, like they'll probably just brush it off to, oh, they're getting old or something like that, as opposed to, no, you destroyed your eardrums in a stupid event to make a point about what? Uh, Don't know what you guys are talking about in the sandbox. There's some things that's like, okay, so you guys have a conversation going on. And I'm trying to think of like, yeah. My dogs are gone. The economy was losing millions every day. No one else was doing anything. Yeah. And they had some border crossings shut down, and that caused a lot of problems. And those ones got dealt with a lot faster because, you know, you disrupt the supply chain and law enforcement tends to crack down a little bit harder on that. But then you also had what was happening at the Coots border in Alberta, where you had people in this freedom convoy that were there plotting to kill police officers. Like they're in court. Some of them have been arrested and charged, and we'll talk a little bit, just touch on it briefly on the next thing that I'm going to talk about, because again, I don't think people realized how bad this actually was. That you had people in different areas plotting to murder people. Like it was really bad. My dogs are goth. Fox News in the US was egging the convoy on. Yeah, the way that they were covering it was to be expected, but yeah, they were making it sound like they were freedom fighters and stuff, and just, you know, referring to Justin Trudeau as a dictator. And it's just, Justin Trudeau is a lot of things. A dictator is not one of them. My dogs are goth. They were a bunch of babies having a 3-week long temper tantrum. It's more like a 3-week long, they're at the daycare without any supervision. Like they were just making a mess. They were setting up, like there was bouncy castles for the kids set up, the hot tub. Like it was just, Emergency remedial truth. I feel a duty to do my part in my small way to increase the sum of total honesty and kindness in the world. I can't solve the big problems. People with power and influence can't either. I can be kind. Yeah, do what you can when you can. Okay, next thing, which kind of almost ties in to, because they do talk about the convoy briefly in this, and it's just like, again, it's that right-wing influence. It's the United States influencing society here in Canada, and the damage it does, and why we need more cross-border solidarity, especially on the left, which is something I keep on bugging people down in the States for. It's like we need to start talking about Canadian stuff too, because we send our worst Canadians down to the States, and then they send the West Americans up to the States. Case in point. Tucker Carlson. He came up here for, I don't know, speaking engagements that were really stupid. Filled the stadium just to hear him talk, which is really, I find, unbelievable because of how annoying his voice is. But the Breakdown, who are in Alberta, and they cover political news in Alberta. If you want to keep in touch or up to date with Alberta news, they're a great source for it. And so since this was happening in Alberta, because Alberta is the Florida, Texas of Canada, yeah, so Danielle Smith, the current premier, had tweeted this out. So Here's Tucker Carlson. Jordan Peterson was at this event too, of course. But Daniel Smith tweeted this out. Free speech means you don't just have to talk to the mainstream media. Finished up in Calgary, off to Edmonton next. I didn't misread that, did I? Free speech means you don't just have to talk to the mainstream media. I'm trying to understand what that sentence means. Because there's nothing stopping them from talking to, like, is she saying that if you have free speech, you can only talk to mainstream media? Because that has never been what free speech in any context has really ever stood for. In fact, they often accuse the mainstream media of stifling free speech. So I'm trying to figure out, what does she mean by this? Like, it makes no sense. But she is a she's an interesting one. She has referred to like the founding fathers, the First Amendment, and all that sort of stuff. Like, she doesn't even know what is and isn't Canadian, because she so desperately wants Alberta to just be another American state. And the fact that we can have people like her in leadership in this country just kind of blows my mind. So the breakdown tweeting out, Smith wasn't on the Edmonton bill, so she wasn't actually scheduled to be in this talking tour of Tucker Carlson. She just kind of, yeah, but she couldn't help herself. Alberta doesn't have a premier. We got a groupie riding on Tucker Carlson's coattails. Yeah, she crashed his show. Like, she just wanted to be part of it. She wanted to be with him. So she had tweeted out, a packed house in Edmonton, Alberta, to witness free debate, thought, and expression. We need more of this from all sides. Thank you to Conrad Black, Jordan Peterson, Tucker Carlson for coming out. Yeah. She'll never, I don't think she quite understands, but there's a reason why she'll never quite fit in with, Tucker Carlson and Jordan Peterson. She has a very hard time understanding why she will never be really accepted by these groups, why she will never be invited to be part of the club, but she can't seem to figure it out for some reason, what that might be. And it could be the type of people she is trying to cozy up to, thinks that she is less of a person because she is a she. I never understand people's desperate need to want to be accepted by groups of people that think less of you or hate you. I've never understood that. But she so desperately wants to be part of their club and doesn't understand that she never will be. But we have some video about this. And this talking engagement that Tucker Carlson went on was absolutely nightmarish in the rhetoric he was spewing out to thousands of Canadians that were just eating it up. It's pretty bad.
A controversial.
We'll go to that setting. And then I want to cut into about here.
Tucker Carlson still draws a crowd.
The one and only Tucker Carlson.
A Calgary speaking event didn't make room for media, but see.
So media wasn't given a space in this, but that whole free speech thing and mainstream media, you don't have to talk to them, so we're not going to invite them. And then they get upset when mainstream media doesn't include them and stuff, but here they weren't even given a spot. I think it's just,
speaking event didn't make room for media, but CTV News was there to see Carlson take repeated aim at immigration and gender ideology. He also expressed disgust over what he believes are federal policies around drugs and medically assisted dying purposely designed to attack Christian Canadians.
Like, I really have to wonder if he violated any of our hate speech laws during this. Like, I've seen some of the comments, but it's like he danced around it in such, like, that's the thing about Tucker Carlson, is he knows how to speak and stay right on the fence of what is and isn't allowed. Well, except for the reason why he was fired from Fox News, was for lying so much and the whole pushing that the election was a fraud and that sort of stuff. But we'll go over some of the quotes, and it's like, it's just on the cusp of hate speech. Like, he could be sued, and like, this is not allowed in Canada, and yet here he is up on stage speaking to thousands of people, talking about the replacement theory, using transphobic, homophobic slurs. It is just how he's allowed to be given such a platform boggles my mind. And the way he excites and energizes the crowd too should be a sign of concern. Like, there's a reason why Pierre Poilievre stands a very good chance of winning the election, because he actually says a lot more muted, but he says a lot of the same things that Tucker says. It is, they really are taking that right-wing populist angle and going at it hard. And it's scary to think that there are thousands of people just eating this up.
You're hassling that group? Maybe you've got another agenda that we should be concerned about, even if we're not in that group.
Much of the engagement had an undertone of anger and potential rebellion against the Trudeau Liberals.
This is not a political debate to which you've been invited to participate. This is a destruction of you and your culture and your beliefs and your children.
But when Premier Daniel...
Yeah, saying that all these people here, all these right-wingers, they're under attack. They should defend themselves. That their way of life is being threatened. Yeah, that leads to, what's that word again? Stochastic terrorism. Because if he convinces people that this is real and that they are under attack, then some of them are going to lash out. And that's already happened in this country. Like, again, I don't know how he was allowed to say a lot of what he said on stage in Canada, because we have language laws here. We do not have free speech here.
Danielle Smith was brought on stage, the temperature was noticeably lower. Carlson and Smith did discuss the Fed.
I love the way that sometimes Canadian reporters will do very subtle digs. But here.
And your beliefs and your children.
But when Premier Danielle Smith was brought on stage, the temperature was noticeably lower. Carlson and Smith did
Yeah, she killed the energy. She brought the energy down. She didn't get the crowd excited. That's Canadian reporters for you.
discuss the feds, but the premier made sure to steer clear of the personality's more polarizing views.
But I accept interviews and have conversations with everyone.
They did seem to align on many issues. They discussed the power grid, COVID protests, and chatted at length about energy policy.
So I think we should just double down and decide we're going to double our oil and gas production.
Just a reminder that not too long ago, Alberta had to put out messages to everyone saying, please don't use any extra electricity right now because we have risks of blackouts and it's -40 out, so people will die.
Awesome.
What was great about it?
Just all the truth that was spoken.
Because it tells the truth.
Just a truth and honest conversation and saying what needs to be said.
It's the honest.
It's not. It's not the truth. It's not the honest conversation. It's just them feeling liberated to speak what they feel inside. It's their inner truth that is showing. That's what's happening here. It's not the truth. It's their truth that they're now allowed to express. Their racism, their homophobia, their transphobia, their attacks on liberals and saying that we need to keep oil and gas, even though it's destroying the planet. But since it's their way of life, it's part of their culture, they don't want to give it up. And so it's their inner truth that they care about and they're expressing here.
It's the common sense factor.
Experts speculate the premier attended to appease the more extreme side of her base.
I think she's very cognizant of keeping them on side, stacked against the reality that this is going to worry some moderate conservatives.
Carlson's two-stop Canadian tour will wrap up in Edmonton. Tim Brooke, CTV News.
So Daniel Smith was actually questioned as to why she went on this little thingy.
Question. It's Shaylan Skolsky with CTV here in Edmonton, and I apologize, my first question is not on topic, but it is for the Premier. I do want to ask about your attendance at both of Tucker Carlson's events yesterday. This is somebody who has been accused of defending white supremacy, spreading misinformation about the war in Ukraine, as well as making disparaging remarks about women. So why did you believe that this is someone that you should be giving time and attention to?
Well, I take a wide range of media requests. I'm told by my staff 96.
Then maybe I should send her a media request.
Individual media events or interviews since I got reelected, 24 press conferences, and I don't do a screening test to make sure that every person that interviews me matches 100% of what I believe.
So is she trying to say that she didn't really know who Tucker Carlson was before this, that she didn't know about all of his racist rhetoric, his constant talk of replacement theory, his homophobia, his transphobia? She didn't know any of that ahead of time? Or she doesn't agree with him 100%, but she agrees with him 99% maybe. So she agrees with all of that horrible stuff.
I don't expect that that would be an appropriate thing to do. So I take a wide range of interviews from CBC all the way through to alternative media because
I'm alternative media. Come on my show. I'll be polite.
Job is to get our message out about Alberta. And I told everyone that I wanted to make sure that somebody who has a very loud voice in America knew that we were a partner in being able to provide energy security and energy affordability. And I got that message out.
Yeah. That's the thing. They do a very good job on the right of building coalitions across the border. But we'll go here. Faye Johnstone had tweeted this out. So Tucker Carlson made a quip that Trudeau being in the closet. The audience ate it up. The textbook homophobia using insinuation someone is gay to portray them as weak, effeminate, and worthy of mockery. And tonight he's on stage in convo with the Premier of Alberta. So on stage, he says that Canada is in its official policy that it's good to come out of the closet unless you're the Prime Minister. The Overton window is shifting before our eyes. What we once acknowledged as wrong, bullying marginalized group and using them as the butt end of jokes is becoming more acceptable again. It's normalizing a culture even more hostile to diversity and equality, where we punch down on those stigmatized and marginalized. When the Premier of a Canadian province is associating herself with someone like Carlson, we should all be worried. Yeah. So this is from the Anti-Hate Network. Tucker Carlson's Calgary parents decries the new state of religion of transgenderism. Former Fox News anchor Tucker Carlson just completed his single-day two-stop speaking tour in Alberta on Thursday, using his time to warn the audience that they're under attack. You should recognize what's happening to you, Carlson told around 7,000 Calgarians. This is not a political debate to which you have been invited to participate. This is destruction of you and your culture and your beliefs and your children and your future as a country. Yeah, that's that's how stochastic terrorism starts. Part of his liberation tour, Carlson traveled to arenas in Calgary and Edmonton to address throngs of people. Appearing alongside him were several notable Canadian figures, including Jordan Peterson, Conrad Black, and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith during the stop in Edmonton. Conservative pundit Rex Murphy was scheduled to appear but dropped out. Let's see. So when Carlson sat down with Smith, they touched on several topics ranging from environmental policy, anti-conservative bias in Hollywood and universities, because, you know, that's so important how media portrays, movies portrays politics, because they don't care. Hollywood makes movies to make money. They go where the money is. It's not anti-conservative by any default other than they want to make what sells. And diversion led by Carlson into the issue of the Coots 4, a group of men arrested near Alberta-Montana border crossing in 2022 accused of planning to kill RCMP officers. Black and Peterson both regularly appear on the National Post columnists because of course they have jobs and they're still considered, you know, credible. That they can spew this right-wing nonsense, but the National Post is pretty much a right-wing magazine. Like, they talk about the bias in Hollywood and then totally not mention the bias that, you know, something like the National Post might have. Yeah, of which Black is a founder of National Post. Reporting by Press Progress found the publication was telling investors that government support to the tune of $35 million were key pillars of its business strategy. Despite this, Carlson maintained that the Canadian news was bought and paid for by Trudeau government, calling it state media. So the Canadian government is giving this paper, National Post, $35 million, key pillars of its business strategy. But that's not being bought and paid for. But, you know, the CBC, which has always been government funded, that's what Trudeau is using as his mouthpiece. Am I getting okay? I can tune in any hour of the day and learn that I am a racist for driving an SUV, for not being trans, he told the crowd. So that's Tucker Carlson in Calgary. That's the whole schedule of the CBC programming, but that's interpret that. That's not woke. Oh, it's woke. I hate that woke crap. It doesn't mean anything. They hate you. They are saying you are bad. During the Calgary speech, Carlson invoked the concept of a white replacement. They're taking away your voting power by changing the population of your country, and accused Justin Trudeau of being a weird little cross-dresser. Yeah. Carlson used his popularity to spread conspiracy theories, misogyny, and racist talking points. A profile on the pundit by the Southern Poverty Law Center details his numerous invocations of the Great Replacement, a conspiracy theories that paints demographic change in North America as a plot to strip white people of political power. The theory has led to multiple mass murders. Carlson went as far as to claim that the movement supporting stronger rights for transgender people was an attempt to ritually humiliate Christians. Swear allegiance to the new state religion, which is transgenderism, he said. Other claims include that the province of British Columbia was giving fentanyl to children, tantamount to trying to kill your children. As pointed out by Jeremy Apple, an Alberta journalist who attended the Edmonton event, this is likely a conflation of recommendation from the BC Centre of Substance Use to include minors in safe drug supply. The centre is not a government body, and the recommendation is not current policy. so it's not even a thing. Carlson was once the biggest names in cable news. Let's see, do I need to... Yeah, so if we go over to this article here from Politico, it actually goes over more of the quotes that he was saying in this. So Tucker Carlson brought MAGA World to Calgary on Wednesday, where loud cheers greeted his calls for freedom of speech and weapons for self-defense, which you need and deserve as a free person. There's more cheering about drumming up oil production, along with predictable knocks at mainstream media, the CBC in particular. Other applause lines, anti-LGBTQ plus jokes and tropes. Carlson spoke at length about the plight of Anglos, white English speakers. It's his thing. He told the Alberta crowd he'd witnessed Montreal being cleansed of its Anglo legacy. You should recognize what is happening to you, the former news star said to his seated audience of 4,000 people in Calgary. This is your destruction of you, your culture, your beliefs, children, future. Let's see. There's some things that I wanted to get to on this. So, notable, quotable, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith arrived on stage, signaled the start of a build energy discussion. She used the stage to mock the futility of snow-covered solar panels and renewables during the province's recent cold snap. And yet, it's her policies and stuff that were in place that caused them to lose power and have to put on so many restrictions during that cold snap. But she still loves blaming everyone else. In a housekeeping note, Smith emphasized to the crowd that she has conversations with everyone, including people or certain public broadcasters with whom she doesn't see eye to eye. See, I want to get to something to watch for. So, Smith worked to enlist Carlson in her ongoing battle with Canada's Environment Minister, an open invitation for American show host to explain his influence in Canadian politics. So this is what she said while she was on stage to these thousands of people when she was sitting next to Tucker Carlson. I wish you would put Stephen Guilbeault in your crosshairs, she said. There was laughter and applause in the conversation hall. I'm trying to get him fired and I would love your help. A politician asking somebody with massive social influence to put another politician in their crosshairs has really dark connotations to it. Like, it is just, I don't know how she was allowed to say that on stage. We do not have free speech here, and that is very, very threatening language. Asking somebody with as much social power influence as Tucker Carlson to put somebody in their crosshairs, to get Tucker Carlson to start going after the environment minister, to start targeting him, is very dangerous. And this is where we're going, and I don't see the pushback on the left in this country. I don't see the rallies, the speaking tours of people on the left. Like, we never had a Bernie Sanders here, somebody filling stadiums with message of hope. Like, Jagmeet Singh came close when he was running to be the leader of the NDP, but then he fell flat once he got that leadership. We don't have anybody here on the left energizing people, speaking to people, countering all of this hateful, racist rhetoric that we're getting all the time. And I don't see it getting any better the way things are. I wish I could do more on my tiny little channel to get the message out there, to reach more people, to just sit down and talk with some of these, like, a lot of people on the right are there because they're scared. They're losing their way of life, not for the reasons they're being told. And they don't know what to do about it. And I would just wish that there was a way to talk reality into them, to talk truth, like actual truth, not their personal truth. And I don't know how you break through that, because you see clips of it all the time of right-wingers at rallies and press conferences and stuff. And they can be confronted with provable facts, and yet they'll still deny that because they're so stuck in their way. And I wish there was like a magic turn of phrase or something we could use on them to wake them up to what's happening. But it's the right-wing leaders and influencers and their way of life that is causing all of their problems and making things worse. And with the way climate change is going and everything of that, it's not going to get any easier in the near future. So we have like Trump getting up into power in the States, and if he gets into power again, you know, you might as well kiss democracy goodbye in the United States. But people seem to think we're safe here in Canada from all of this. And relatively speaking, we are safer. It's much harder to get to where you guys are in the States. It's not impossible. And we are going down that road. Our politicians are seeing what American politicians get away with and thinking, yeah, that looks good. And meanwhile, the people are just not even paying attention to what is happening. Again, if people were paying attention to what was happening, they'd be in the streets right now protesting healthcare, like what's happened to our healthcare. Because that is something that Canadians used to have with so much pride, was our universal healthcare. And, you know, they brush it off like, oh, there's just a shortage of doctors right now, or it's just this and that and the other thing. But the only people our healthcare system serves right now are healthy people. You know, if you just need to go to the doctor once in a while, then our healthcare system is great. But for a lot of people that have to use it regularly for chronic issues, to diagnose issues and stuff, start really learning how much it has, oh, what's the word? When it's fallen apart. I had the word for like a split second in my head. How much it's not crumbled. It's like a D something. I don't know. It was in my head for a split second. I had the exact word I wanted to use. Darn it, it's going to come to me later on, and then I'll just blurt it out and you'll have no idea what I'm talking about. Ah, let's check the sandbox while I'm working on that. Something like decompile. Not that. Our healthcare is not decomposing. That's not what I want. Oh well. My dogs are goths. She knew she would get pushback on this, and that's her stupid argument. She can talk to who she wants. I guess she's embarrassing. Yeah, Danielle Smith, like, these are the people that get rewarded. That, you know, get the jobs and stuff. And I don't understand, like, that blows the whole idea of people, of, you know, making it on their merits, because a lot of these right-winger politicians are some of the most absent-minded people, so shallow, so unable to think critically, and yet they're in some of the highest positions of power. Seeing lots of emojis in the chat. Oh, and on Instagram, Tucker Carlson had a couple of videos trolling Justin Trudeau, where he was calling into the hotline saying, "I'm coming to Canada." And Tucker Carlson always, like he has it in the video. I don't want to play it because there's music playing on them and issues with music on YouTube. And Tucker always brings up Justin Trudeau in blackface. Like that hasn't been done over and over and over and over again. But it's like Tucker Carlson is so much more racist than Justin Trudeau. I believe, wasn't he part of like some really racist group when he was in college? There was oh, I can't think of the name of it, but there was like a club or something that he was part of that was just brutally racist club. I think it was him. I don't know, but yeah, Tucker Carlson is just so racist and stuff, and yet will still just latch on to Justin Trudeau in blackface over and over and over again. Like the right wing loves to do that. And that's part of the problem when we have, you know, people in the center and left trying to play progressives but aren't. When they do things like that, so blatantly bad, that it gives the right fuel for their arguments and something to point to over and over and over again. And, you know, if Justin Trudeau loses this appeal for the Emergencies Act, on why he uses it, it's just another thing that the right will be able to point to over and over again to point out how bad Justin Trudeau is and how much of a dictator he is. Justin Trudeau is bad. There's no doubt about it, but he's nowhere near as bad as they make him out to be. And I'd much rather have him in than Pierre Poilievre and the right wing. Even though Justin Trudeau is horrible. Just, I really want like an actual left in this country. Like all you Americans watching, you constantly think up here in Canada we're so progressive, and yet we don't even have a real leftist party anymore. Because the NDP has fallen close to center. The Green Party, it depends. It depends on who. But there's no real leftist movement in this country. There's no coalition. There's no cohesion. Grand Theft Autobot, I thought Tucker Carlson hated Canada. Why is he speaking then? Yeah, why come up here if you hate it so much? He loves crowds, that's for sure. He loves the attention. And it's about building that right-wing coalition. Monope, this looks like a sea of white grandparents. Yeah, it was a pretty white stadium. All the pictures I saw. Really, there was a theme. Dino Rancher, I must be a priest because I'm trans and it's a new religion. Yeah, what would our positions be? So you want to be a priest, or you think you'd be a priest. What would I be as non-binary and outspoken in this new religion of ours? What's the gender neutral term for goddess? Soul Life, this is Tucker laying the ground for work for when Project 2025 happens. Americans will have nowhere to go. I think that's Project 2024. Like, I think it's happening this year with the election and stuff. Although most of it would be implemented in 2025. That's what I keep on trying to warn you Americans about, and why you should care about politics up here is, like, before you jump into your lifeboat, because a lot of Americans think they'll just come to Canada. Yeah, so before you jump into that lifeboat, you might want to make sure you've plugged all the holes first. Nope, Americans can't all flee to Canada. The rich will be fine wherever they are. Yeah, that actually reminds me, because I was watching a lot of Canadian news recently to get information on, you know, the convoy, the rulings and all this sort of stuff. Like, if I'm reporting on Canadian news to you guys, I should probably be watching more Canadian news, but it's so dry and boring and oh my God, and they're all the same. And I realized a lot of them are clueless to the realities of the situation, and they all have, like, actually very balanced views. Like, the conservatives are very reasonable and they'll call out the extremism and stuff. But I'm looking at all of them and they're all speaking from this place of privilege. It doesn't matter to them which government we get. They'll be fine. What you don't see on Canadian news is someone like me. You know, somebody living with poverty, somebody living with disabilities, somebody whose life is in jeopardy with these policies that are in place. You don't see us on any of the Canadian mainstream networks. It's all people, you know, who've been through university, who have their degrees, who come from wealthy family backgrounds and all this sort of stuff. You don't have diversity of class in mainstream media in Canada. And so for them, it's easy for them to have reasonable takes and stuff because they're not worried about the outcomes the same way I am, or the same way a lot of you will be. And it really is eye-opening, because if the conservatives here in this country really were as balanced as some of these news broadcasters think they are, then yeah, it wouldn't be so bad. But a lot of the right-wingers that are so upset and going so hard, it's because they're struggling. Their life is in turmoil. They're losing the things that they want. Like, it is, they're in desperate times, and they're just turning the wrong way to find solutions. So they're so out of touch with where a lot of Canadians are. Like, those newscasters will always be able to afford groceries, whereas like half the country right now struggles every time we have to go to the grocery store. Like, more than half of Canadians are a certain amount, $100 from not being able to cover an emergency. More than half of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. And yet our representation in office and in the media are of people who will never need to worry about that. So their bias is always going to be a classist bias. I have a very cute cat on my lap right now. Oh, he's purring. Nope, I wish I had sled dogs as a form of transportation. Would be interesting, but I don't know how much snow we're going to be having. Grand Theft Autobot, oh, I support the trans rights. I guess now I am in the religion, even though I'm an anti-theist. I'm a transgenderist. Yeah, it's a religion. It's not, you know. The thing is you're not born with a religion. Like, some people are born into a religion, which I don't think should be a thing. But it's not an ingrained part of who you are. You ultimately choose your religion. You're born the gender you are and the body you are, and sometimes they don't match. Yeah, you're not born a religion, at least not in the actual technical sense. Let's see. Whoops. It skipped. I was just about to read something. Emergency remedial truth. Far left means people insisting upon rights you don't think they should have. If you see the far left, then you are the asshole. I think I know what you mean by that. BKK was 3 degrees last week, and today I'm considering the AC. It is warm. If I didn't know what month it was, I would definitely not think it's January. Germ, most of us down here do think Canada is superior. Don't get me wrong, we are. We're just not as superior as we like to think. Like, we do have better health care. And, let's see, better sense of humor. Other than that, no, not that. Gun issues. We don't have the same gun issues up here. Speaking of which, let's get to this. That's like a perfect segue into this.
In this quiet apartment complex, neighbors of a man accused of opening fire at Edmonton City Hall, trying to process the act of violence.
Basically,
So this was happening almost the same time as Tucker Carlson was in town. They briefly mentioned it in their talk, but somebody went to Edmonton City Hall with Molotov cocktails and a gun and everything. Didn't kill anyone, didn't injure anyone. And from what I've gathered, from what I've read and watched so far, wasn't trying to either, but made a mess and scared a lot of people.
Interaction with him was just hellos. It seemed very normal. There was no weird activity.
Tuesday morning, police say Bazani Sarvar lit several devices they believe to be Molotov cocktails inside City Hall and fired multiple rounds at random from a long gun. The building placed on lockdown, causing terrifying moments for those stuck inside.
Yeah, I found it funny also when I was watching a lot of the news reports on this, and then the reporters talking about the gun. It was a long gun. It was a big gun. Don't know what kind of gun it was. He had a gun. Don't know where he got the gun. It's like, yeah, here's Canadians like, it looks like a big gun. Don't know what kind it is or anything of that sort. Whereas if it was an American reporter, it'd be like, it's this type of gun with these type of bullets and this type of a bump stock or something of that sort, and you need this and it comes from this manufacturer and stuff. Whereas Canadians are like, yeah, it was big.
Moments for those stuck inside, including a class of grade 1 students. Police say the suspect dropped his weapon and surrendered to a security guard. The 28-year-old, also a security guard, is charged with 6 explosives and firearm offenses. In a wide-ranging, sometimes sporadic 4-minute video posted by the social media account YEG Wave circulating online, Sarvar details a long list of grievances with society, saying he wants to make the world better. It is not clear where or when the video was recorded.
Does that video align with a man that you know?
No. In all of the way, no. As I mentioned earlier, not in a million years. This is just out of the blue.
Emmanuel Cruz lives beside Sarvar and says they spoke often. He and other neighbors say Sarvar is married with kids.
All I can say is really good guy. Like sample every time I went out, and we saw each other, just always asking, how's the kid, how's the family.
Did you ever see him with a gun, or did he ever talk about a gun?
No, not at all. I know again he's a security guard, but other than that's all I know from him. But I've never seen him with a gun, not get violent at all.
Sarvar made a very brief court appearance Thursday through video conference. He wore an orange jumpsuit, showed little facial expression, and did not make any comments. His bail hearing was postponed to next Friday. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Yeah, so there's not much in the way of motive or anything yet as to why this guy did what he did. Yeah, so defense lawyer says he can't comment on client's state of mind. So they're trying to look into see if this is a mental health issue. But fortunately, like I said, nobody was injured, nobody was killed. And from all appearances, he wasn't trying to actually harm anyone. He wasn't shooting at anyone. He wasn't targeting anyone. So security guard accused in Edmonton City Hall shooting makes court appearance. The security guard accused of firing shots and causing small fire and Molotov cocktails inside Edmonton City Hall on Tuesday is being held in a maximum security unit in Edmonton Remand Center. Sarvar, 28, appeared by video Thursday wearing an orange jumpsuit. He is facing 6 criminal charges. Yeah, so all that technical stuff. So he has worked for a security company, Corps of Commissionaries, since 2019. So he's been a security guard for quite some time, although he was not a security guard for the city hall. A different security guard. He surrendered to a different security guard, but he never worked at the city hall. He was assigned to a variety of locations across Edmonton, but never worked as part of the security detail in City Hall, the company said in a news release. So he said he's only spoken with the lawyer has only spoken with his client briefly and can't comment on the allegations at this point or speak to his state of mind. CBC has confirmed with 4 people who knew him that he is the person who appears in roughly 4-minute video that is circulating online, including an Instagram page in which he describes a wide-ranging thoughts about modern society while referencing a mission. It's not clear when or where the video was recorded. So somebody said who knows him says not in a million years. This is just out of blue. And then City Hall will review its security measures and stuff. But like, fortunately, nobody was hurt. But, you know, those little kids are going to be traumatized by this for quite some time. And with people like Tucker Carlson coming up and spewing all of that hatred and stochastic terrorism, things like this is going to happen more and more often. Like, here he is at City Hall. City Hall didn't have a metal detector, and now they're considering it. Like, that's the thing in Canada that we take for granted, is how many of our official buildings don't have metal detectors, depending on where you are. Like, if you go to Queen's Park or Parliament Hill, there's metal detectors, and you're not allowed to take anything in when you go to watch in the gallery and stuff of that sort. But a lot of our courts and things of that sort don't have metal detectors necessarily, depending on where you live. Like, we have so much freedom up here that we don't realize until we go somewhere else. Just the security measures in place and stuff. And it's going to get scarier with, you know, Tucker Carlson coming up here spewing his stochastic terrorism, the premier of Alberta feeding into it. And again, where's the left? Where's the left speaking out on it? Justin Trudeau can't really say anything because he would never be taken seriously. Like, we need like a real movement up here. Like, we don't even have, like, in the States right now, you have that one union leader who's calling for a general strike in 2028, which is great, but not soon enough. We don't see that here in Canada because, again, too many people still think that we're doing okay. They're feeling the pinch, but I think a lot of people feel like it's only going to be temporary or something. That they haven't had to move in a long time, so they don't understand or realize how bad rental prices and housing prices are, because unless it's something that they intend to do, you don't think of it. You don't look into it. And for a lot of Canadians, when it comes to healthcare or cost of living issues and things of that sort, it's going to be when they need them that they're going to realize how bad it's gotten. Somebody mentioned this earlier and it just was on the side of the news article, so I'll just pull this up briefly. Somebody mentioned this in the sandbox. Jury says Donald Trump must pay $83 million US more to writer E. Jean Carroll. Jury has started deliberations Friday afternoon, deliver verdict within a few hours. And that's on top of what he already has to pay her. But then he continued to defame her. A jury awarded $83.3 million to US to E. Jean. Oh, that's US too. Wow. In Canadian dollars, that's like $1 billion. On Friday in a stinging and expensive rebuke to former US President Donald Trump for his continued social media attacks against the longtime advice columnist over her claims that he sexually assaulted her in Manhattan department store. The award, when coupled with $5 million sexual assault and defamation verdict last year from another jury in a case brought by Carroll, raised to $88.3 million, what Trump must pay her. Protesting vigorously, he said he would appeal. Statement from, I guess, Carroll's team. This is a great victory for every woman who stands up when she's been knocked down, and a huge defeat for every bully who has tried to keep a woman down. Trump had left the courthouse earlier in the day, but stormed out of the courtroom during closing arguments read by Carroll's attorney. He returned for his own attorney's closing argument and for a portion of deliberations, but left the courthouse a half hour before the verdict was read. He's such a baby. Trump is such a baby. I have an orange baby in my lap right now, but not that orange baby. I have this orange baby, which is a much nicer orange baby to have around. Yes, you're a sweetie. You're a sweetie. Don't know if you can hear him purring. Probably not. Back to the sandbox. Deteriorate. Yes, BKK. You got the word that I was thinking of earlier. Deteriorate. The healthcare has deteriorated. That's the word. Thank you. Soul Life also said that. And Grand Theft Autobot deteriorate, of course. Yes, that is the word. Degraded also works. Emergency remedial truth. Grand Theft Autobot, Damn White Society. I think that's the club, yeah. I believe it was Tucker Carlson. Let's see. Okay. Okay, yeah, I was getting some things mixed up about it, but he was part of it. So Tucker Carlson, the college Carlson attended confirms the authenticity of Carlson's 1991 college yearbook entry, saying that he was members of the Jesse Helm Foundation and the Dan White Society. Dan White assassinated gay civil rights pioneer and Harvey Milk in 1978. Jesse Helms was one of the most active anti-LGBTQ senators in U.S. history, who said AIDS resulted from unnatural and disgusting homosexual behavior and ran racist campaigns. Yeah. But he loves to point out Justin Trudeau's blackface. This man who's so full of hatred and rage and vitriol, but will constantly say, yeah, but this. And granted, it wasn't just one time Justin Trudeau dressed up in blackface, way too many times that we know of, and won't even admit to how many times he has. Because when he was asked, he's like, I don't know. And if you don't know, that's bad. BKK, you are superior, hands down, but you're definitely not a utopia. Yeah. When I was younger, I used to be a proud Canadian, and then I learned more about what Canada was. Now I just say I'm grateful, because I do know my life in most other places would not be as good as it is due to the fact of where I was born and the fact that I'm white. Because even everyone's experience of this country is drastically different depending on where you were born, what color you were born, what religion you were born into, and all that sort of stuff. But I do recognize that in most other countries, I probably wouldn't have made it this long. And things here are not that great, so... Mudbuds, way more people are going to snap if things keep going the way they are going. Yeah, like, I don't know why that guy went on that rampage in the city hall, but it seems like a cry for help. Especially considering he didn't target anyone, he wasn't hurting anyone, terrifying people, but... You know, some people are mentioning our emergency remedial truth. Reject Tucker Carlson. I don't know why he was allowed a visa. I sometimes worry that with all my political commentary, that if I ever needed to travel to the States, they wouldn't let me. And yet we get people like Tucker Carlson are allowed to travel up here. But, you know, it's never equal when it comes to how the left is treated and how the right is treated with authority figures. It's never equal. Germ, adorable. Yes, this cat is adorable. Lanier. Arrgh. Come on. No, you gotta, like, look at the camera, you know? People want to see your beautiful, cute little face. He's a lap cat. He likes to just sit on my lap and purr and cuddle. And he's still small enough that I can do this. He's not a year old yet. You're adorable. Okay, so I think I went over everything that I kind of wanted to go over today. Like, I have lots of other stuff to go over. So Sunday at 6 p.m. I'll have my next live stream. I don't think you guys can hear his purring. Mono, that's why I'd like to rent a cat who can lay on my chest and purr so I can fall asleep to it. Yeah. Well, he's not allowed in my bedroom yet when I sleep. Both him and Abernathy can't go into the bedroom because I have to keep Frodo separate overnight so that he can eat. Because Frodo is a grazer when it comes to food. And he's always been that way. Whereas this little guy is a pig when it comes to wet food and would gobble it all up. So I have to keep them separate so that Frodo has the night to just kind of eat at his leisure. And then also Frodo and I have a bedtime snuggle routine that this guy would interfere with. So it's one of the things I won't know how well they'll snuggle with me at night for quite some time, I'm hoping. I'm hoping because as long as Frodo's around, it means that they're not going to be allowed in the bedroom with me at night. And I want Frodo to be with me forever. Also, I'm pretty sure they would wake me up at all different times of the night because they're constantly playing with things. In Abernathy, but when I'm doing yoga in the morning and stuff and lying on the floor, he'll attack my head. Okie doke. I think I actually covered everything I wanted to do. So, yes, last Wednesday, Ravana was on my show. Please go check out that video. We had a great chat. And then earlier that week, I was on the North of 48 podcast. Gave his channel a good boost. Like over 800 views on our conversation, which is far more than I get on mine. And that blew him away because he's a teeny tiny channel. So I would like those numbers on my videos. I don't know. I did something over the break. I reached out to somebody, and it's a project of mine that I was on. I'll have to see how it goes. I don't know. It'll be a while before I potentially hear back, but I'm always trying to find ways of growing my channel because I'm not good at networking. I don't know how to do it properly. So any help that you guys can give me with networking with other channels, I greatly appreciate because that's not a strong point of mine. But I might take time off every month, I think, because it's hard for me to focus on more than one thing at a time. I kind of hyper focus. And so it's like when I'm working on a drawing, that's all I want to work on until it's done. And with the amount of content that I have to make, because I want to release a video every day, which means I'm going to be chopping up these live streams. I still want to do my regular video essays. It's like, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I released clips from one of my live streams yesterday. Please go click on them and give them a view. You don't have to watch them. Just click on them and walk away because they're not doing that great. Like it takes a lot of energy and time to make these clips. And so part of it is to help with the algorithms, but if they get almost no, like if they get under 100 views, they're actually going to be detrimental to my algorithms. So I'm trying to find those sweet spots. So when you see that I've posted a clip of a live stream, just go and watch it, like click on it. You don't even have to watch it. So let's get some. Yeah, so if you can, and only if you can, please sign up to become a patron so that I can get enough money to top up my ODSP income so I can afford groceries. It's getting really bad, but I'm okay right now. I also have an Amazon wish list linked in the description box below. I've recently added a couple things. Some external hard drives, because I was running into problem with my computer being too full, and I got that fixed over my vacation. Because I thought I had a lot of extra junk and stuff on there. So my friend came over, and it turns out, no, it's just getting full. And so I need external hard drives that are much larger, because with all the videos and stuff that I make, I don't keep the raw files, but I always want to keep the completed things for my own records in case something happens to my channel. It takes up a lot of memory, so I've had to add, say, one backup. You don't really have a backup, so you need like 2 different backups in case something happens to the one backup. You have the second backup as a backup to the backup. So, but I have other things on my wish list as well. Things to help with my kitties, things to just brighten my day, cat litter, like things I actually need. And any money spent on that I don't have to spend out of pocket helps a great deal. So every little bit helps. I'm on these social medias. I'm going to have to change this one. Now. I hate when they update their logos, because that means that I have to update all my logos. Like I had to do that with this one. See the little Tweety bird here? I put an X over its eye to show that it's dying Twitter. But yeah, Blue Sky recently changed their logo to a blue butterfly. So I'm going to have to update all of my graphics. Thanks. But please check me out on those different platforms. If you can, support my art. That would be wonderful. I'm still looking to make a sale to sell something other than to my mom. I'm almost done a drawing for the person who won the I don't want to call it a raffle, the draw. Basically, he was the only person to enter into it too. So in honor of a person who donated over $500 to Frodo's vet bill, I did a portrait for somebody living with poverty, and it's going to be at no cost to them. I'm almost done it. I can't show it yet though, because he might see this and I want it to be a surprise. Let's just say he's going to be really happy with it. It's turning out really nicely, and I should be done it tomorrow, but then it still needs to go and get scanned and stuff. So yeah. Thank you to all the wonderful mods for keeping it a safe sandbox, and all the wonderful people for coming out and watching this. Really appreciate it. If you don't have money and you want to help out, great ways of helping out is to comment under all of my videos, just to help the algorithms. If you watch other lefty content creators, mention my name, try to get them familiar with me. All of that, it does help a lot, and you don't need money for that. If there's a particular segment from a live stream that you want to see, in the comment section below, put a timestamp and mention what it is, so that hopefully when I get around to clipping it, I can clip it. And yeah, Lanier is being so freaking cute right now. Yeah, I'm actually ending roughly around where I want to end. I want to keep these around 2 hours, so I need to stop rambling. So I think I said goodbyes to everyone. Thank yous. See you Sunday, 6 p.m. if you can make it out. Until then, salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.